and action. So Jose had questions about giant sets and the concept of giant sets or supersets, or now it's called high intensity interval training. I think it all boils down to people doing more than just doing a set and then waiting and looking in the mirror, doing a set and waiting and looking in the mirror. By the way, I hate when I see people kind of going in the mirror and looking at themselves, and I really, in yoga we're taught not even to look, so every time I work out it's always going to be away from the mirror. If you ever see me at Planet Fitness, I just don't like doing that. Maybe that's just me. Anyway, I'm getting off track. The bottom line with exercise is to do what you have to do, get the gains that you're looking for, which are either working on shoulders, working on arms, getting cardiovascular out, or doing something to lose weight. Whatever it is, get healthy, get active. Giant sets might speed that up for you. So the concept of giant sets, it was invented by Joe Weider. He coined the phrase. And I'll just use my shoulders as one example. So the shoulder is a deltoid. It's made up of 3 muscle heads: the anterior, the medial, and the posterior muscle head. So if I was to do a giant set, if I was to do one set, I'd probably just do overhead press and weight, military press. Now, that was when I was in high school, but I don't do that anymore. I usually do one after the next after the next. You can look at my video on high intensity interval training and see what I do. But just for the concept of this thing, if I was going to work on shoulders, what I would do would try to sling 3 exercises for the same muscle group. So because you have 3 heads, hey, perfect. You can do actually 3 to 4 different movements for the same muscle group, and you'll over fatigue them. You're not going to be able to push heavier weight like when you do single press reps, but you'll gain a little bit out of over exhausting or fatiguing the muscle. So the concept for example would be, I start with lateral raises. That's taking care of the medial head. Work with lateral raises, do as best as I can with the lateral, and right as I'm about to fatigue on the lateral, then I'll do posterior delt. I usually do this bent over, but you can't see me, so I'll pretend I'm bending over, and I'll do raises this way to take care of stressing the posterior portion. Now, just to let you know, I would be like this, bent over and lifting up. It will hit that, but just for me being in the picture, doing like this stimulates the posterior head. Then doing like this will stimulate the anterior delt. So you see there's 3 movements all back to back, no rest, and you over fatigue. And you do that with either both sides with cables. I love cables, or you can do it with dumbbells, but you have to be very strict with your movement. So being very strict gets you just an isolation to that one muscle group versus being sloppy and it kind of just pushing or going like this and kicking it up. So some people, you'll see them doing heavy weights and just kicking up. I don't think that works, or kicking up this way. You have to be careful. Number one, if you're controlled, but you move and hold and then let it go down, that's called a negative rep. I think that's okay. If you're just kicking up and down and kind of looking in the mirror and then doing this, you're asking for an overuse injury. So see my video on growing pains and you'll see. So no sloppiness here. High intensity interval training is still controlled. Giant sets are still controlled. That's just 3 movements for one deltoid. You can also do that with the pecs. You can do bench press, pec deck flies, incline press, or push-ups all together. That's 3 or 4 movements as well. You can do it with big muscle groups. The smaller the muscle group, you probably don't have to do that many. The smaller muscle groups, like the bicep, for example, you only have 2 muscles that you work. That's bicep. You only have 2 muscles, so it's easy to fatigue it. I don't think you have to do supersets for that, unless you're targeting the muscles because they're not as well balanced in your physique. That concept of supersets usually includes a bicep curl and an opposing muscle group like a tricep, a kickback. So that's a little different than giant sets, but bottom line is that we try to compress your workout, get a pump as best as you can. Believe it or not, the resistance exercises that you do to move big muscle versus cardio, pound for pound, the time you spend on the resistance exercises actually burns up more calories than your cardio time. Unless you really push the envelope with speed in cardio, and unfortunately with speed you do need to be efficient, which begs to argue that if you're efficient you're not burning up calories as much. So I know a lot of runners are thin, but bottom line is that, again, if you're trying to be healthy, do whatever you can, make it sustainable. Sometimes resistance training is fun. Running on a treadmill is kind of fun. If you're using it to train for an event, like a 5K or a marathon, half marathon, Ironman, a mud run, that's cool. Just training on a treadmill, pure and simple, without an eventual goal, except for I'm going to lose weight, that's boring. And to me, boring is not sustainable. So mix it up a little bit. If you're not sure what I'm talking about and this doesn't make any sense, go invest in a personal trainer or a life coach, somebody that works out in a gym, or a regular coach. Ask them if you can fine-tune the exercise routine. But Jose, this is meant for you. Hopefully it gives you some answers. Bottom line is create something for you that you might like. Just don't have to spend too much time in the gym. Me, I do 30 minutes, I'm out. I actually spend more time driving to my gym, Planet Fitness, 20 minutes one way, 20 minutes back, than I do in the gym, but it's still exciting to see and work out with all the other guys at 5 in the morning because it's a certain crowd and it's kind of fun. Versus the aggressive crowd, the younger crowd with a lot of testosterone, kind of, like I said, in the afternoon banging in the mirrors and kind of posing, and it's not for me anymore. Maybe when I was 18, but not now. So good question, Jose.